Dudes, what's happening? This is Trent. The number one question that keeps coming in. What pixel dimensions should I be drawing in? Now, the answer to this is going to vary depending on what it is that you're making. But the short answer is, if you're drawing something for a 4K resolution monitor, you should be probably drawing it at 4K resolution pixel dimensions. And what does that mean? Well, if we do a quick Google search here, we find out that it's roughly somewhere around the ballpark of 4,000 pixels by just over 2,000 pixels. Now, you don't have to always draw at those pixel dimensions, but if you don't want to see pixels and you don't want everything to look blurry or wonky or weird, that's a great starting point. Generally, my number one rule is that unless if I'm doing pixel art, if I see pixels, then I'm either zoomed in too close or my resolution of my image is too small. Now, I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper here. That should answer your questions if you're doing something like, for instance, a wallpaper or something that's going to be displayed on a 4K display. That is the standard in the current year of 2018. But let's dig in a little bit deeper. Let's say that you're in Photoshop and you're doing concept art. Now, if you look at my image size, you'll notice that I have it set at, let's look at the pixels. This is at 4,983 by 3,417. So this will look okay on a 4K TV or a 4K display. It's going to look all right. You're not going to see a lot of pixels or anything like that. But let's drop that down by 50%. Mind you, I am an image size here. So let's actually drop it down to 10%. If your artwork looks like this, you are way too low of pixel resolution. You just need to change that. You just need to go up to image size and change that resolution. Now, it won't upscale what you've already drawn, because look at what happens if we suddenly change this to something like, let's just add zeros to the end of this, times 10, you're going to get very blurry, pixelated looking artwork. Because what it's doing is it's stretching out those pixels and it's averaging them. It's trying to figure out how to make one pixel stretch out into 10 pixels. It's not going to look good. So you want to start out at a higher resolution. It's always easier to reduce the resolution than it is to increase it. Now, what happens if, for instance, by the way, I just went to my history and I went all the way up to my original. When I opened the file, that brings us back to our original pixel dimensions. Now we could change the canvas size, and that's a different thing. What that does, let's say that we just chop off, we reduce it by 10%, and we just chop off the last number of every one of those. Actually, let's just do it by percent. Let's say it's 10%. Now, what happened here is it didn't reduce the size of the whole image. It just reduced the size of the canvas, the area that we're actually seeing as an image. And so all of that stuff just got cut out of it. So if you're trying to change your image size, don't change the canvas size. Change the image size, okay? And that'll allow you to increase the size of the full image as opposed to increasing or decreasing the size of the image itself. Again, this is reducing the image size down to 10% of its original resolution. Now, the other thing that I want to recommend is that you keep your resolution at 300 pixels per inch or dots per inch, or DPI as it's sometimes referred to. Now, everything that goes to prints at 300 or 600 dots per inch, or DPI, or pixels per inch. We'll just call it DPI from now on. To better explain pixels per inch, I wanted to pull up this image that I found on Google. You can see here how in this top image, this is essentially a representation of 3 pixels per inch. If this were 1 inch, if the measurement of this whole image were 1 inch this ways, and then 1 inch on this side, and then 1 inch this ways, there would be 3 pixels here. And of course, if we were to print at 3 DPI, you're going to get a very blurry, crummy looking image. So you want that to be much, much higher. In this case, though, we have 9 pixels across, 9 pixels up and down vertically, and 9 pixels horizontally. So therefore, we have a 9 by 9 DPI for this one. Also, as you can see, way too low. We have to be at 300 DPI, or pixels per inch, if we don't want to get a lot of noise and grain and artifacts in our artwork. Now with that in mind, let's go back to our image and reduce the resolution, or the DPI, and just see what happens. If I change this down to 72 resolution, or dots per inch, DPI, it's going to reduce the amount of pixels within the same size canvas. And so what you end up here is with like a lot of pixelated looking stuff, because it's generally keeping the same size of the full canvas, but it's reducing the dots per inch within that canvas size. And so that's why you end up with this really pixelated looking look. So just as a general rule, you want to keep your image at 300 resolution, unless if it's for web, but in case it ever goes to print, keep it at 300 DPI. You could just do 8.5 width by 11 height, and you'd be fine for print, so long as your DPI is at 300. So that's an overview breakdown of what kind of resolution you should be working at, both in basic terms and hopefully a little bit more informative terms. I will suggest that if you're asking this question, you're very much a beginner. You should be looking at beginner content and beginner tutorials on digital art. A lot of these things will apply to Sketchbook Pro as well. It's also in a similar tab within Sketchbook Pro to adjust your image size. It has a lot of the same features that I covered here with Photoshop. Sketchbook Pro is a free program, so it's particularly great for beginners. And it's a great way to develop your skills as a beginner and an intermediate. I'm a pro and I still use it for a lot of final illustration type of stuff. And I break down exactly how to do all of that over in my Sketchbook Pro beginner tutorials. If you've never drawn before and you're interested in learning to do digital artwork, or if you've got some experience working on paper but you want to dig into digital, you can pick up Sketchbook Pro and pick up my Sketchbook Pro box set of tutorials. It'll guide you through the process of learning basic shading and building forms, perspective, and even more advanced layer effects and things like that to really get you up and running. It's helped out a lot of people. I get a lot of really positive feedback from this, that this has really helped a lot of people to develop their digital art skills. And for everybody else, dudes, I'm gonna come back with a little bit more advanced character design tutorials coming up in the next week. I've got my Diablo retrospective from when I worked on Diablo with a bunch of cool concept art for that. So dudes, don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you all mañana, and ciao, baby. Ooh, yeah. What is that?